All right, welcome to corporations. The first file for our consideration is Senate File 28, Elections, Voting Machine and Voting System Tests. Mr. Rubino, were you going to help us with this one? I'd ask the clerks, but I think maybe they're not the best proponents, so I'll yield to you, sir. Welcome. Are you having a good year?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Rubino. I am the Policy Director and Counsel for the Secretary of State's Office. Appreciate the time today to speak in support of this bill. We brought this through committee. This is the second year that this bill has been filed. Of course, this was, I believe it was House Bill 47 last year. Maybe it was 247 last year. Dealing with increasing the transparency, uniformity, and just clarity in the statute dealing with the voting machine tests. So, Mr. Chairman, before I jump in, happy to do a walkthrough of the bill, if that would help the committee.
I think that might be best.
Yeah, and I know that this was a committee bill, so this is the third time. There were a couple of changes that were made throughout the interim on this, but I think that the clerks have a few that I believe that we had testified against amending the bill on notice, a couple of other things, and they'll speak to that. Shrinking the notice down. We believe that the bill as written is in a good form. We reached sort of a compromise on a lot of that. So let me start by doing a walk through the bill, and then we'll go from there.
You bet. Go right ahead.
So again, this bill is about ensuring clarity in our logic and accuracy tests performed on our voting equipment prior to the elections. From a high level, this clears up a few things that were very unclear from our perspective and from the county clerk's perspective in the 2024 election cycle, including the following. One, providing adequate notice to the public of testing of voting equipment, providing that every machine should be tested to be used in an election, clearing up inconsistencies concerning timing of tests and the ability to retest. And that was a pain point that the clerks have had for years in terms of prior to 2 weeks before an election and longer than 2 weeks before an election. And clarity regarding the different number of votes to be assigned to candidates to ensure proper alignment and counting of the machines. And then, of course, providing for retention. So as an overview on page 1, this provides a brief description of the bill. Getting into the amendment in section 1, Wyoming statute 22-10-108, and moving on to page 2. This amends the procedure for preparing machines for elections as follows. On the top of page 2, specifying that county clerks shall post adequate notice before any test or retest of a voting machine. Right now, it's set at 5 days for the initial test. And if there is a retest which is required, which we had specifically in the 2024 primary election, that 24 hours notice be given. Requirements for posting that notice. Continuing on down through lines 12 and 17, that really deals with opening it up from what it currently is, which is party representatives to members of the public. So changing the representatives language to members of the public and attendees. Moving on to page 3, down on the amendments on subsection B of that statute. This clears up an ambiguity that we and the clerks believe existed in the statutes. And I don't have that cross-reference in front of me, but part of our statutes, it was a little bit unclear whether or not it was beyond 2 weeks and less than 2 weeks. And so this clears it up and makes it uniform and consistent that inspection of voting machines, the initial inspection, shall begin not less than 2 weeks. So it's got to have adequate time before the election. Down at the bottom of page 3, lines 21 and 22 provides that a certificate of the testing shall be filed with our office, and a copy shall be kept on file with the office of the county clerk. I think during the interim, and the clerks do have an amendment on this today. At two places this appears. We had testified that we're fine receiving a copy and they retain the original. That is an amendment that I don't think caused heartburn. I don't think the committee chose to move forward with that during the interim. But that amendment, I think is fine. Moving on to page 4. Specifying that the test shall be performed on all election machines used in the election. And in the middle of page 4, beginning line 10, amending Wyoming Statute 22-10-110, which presently creates a conclusive presumption absent a challenge that machines are presumed properly prepared to allow for challenges in that statute. Moving on to page 5. That's really just a little bit of cleanup language up there at the top of page 5 on line 5. And then amending at the bottom of page 5, Wyoming Statute 22-11-104. This gets into sort of some of the mirror language that we have. These are testing of machines. This is concerning the systems which are utilized, which references a lot of the same changes. So again, providing notice for this initial testing. Moving on to page 6, providing for public notice and that this shall be open to members of the public. Again, reiterating that it's not just to representatives of political parties and independent candidates on the ballot. It specifies that it's to be used on all equipment utilized in the election. And at the bottom of page 4, this really specifies the difference between different tabulation devices and ballot marking devices. So if you have
Pardon me, Mr. Rubino, you mentioned page 4 and then you're not on page 4 right now, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm at page 6.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
My apologies.
We don't make curves very well. It's okay. Thank you. Go right ahead.
So down at the bottom of page 6, specifying that if a county utilizes an express vote marking device, that those shall also be used to ensure proper alignment on each ballot card. And so that's the language, using ballots or ballot cards on each machine that are marked by an electronic ballot marking device. Finally, Mr. Chairman, moving on to page 7. These amendments do a number of things to ensure that machines are accurately assigning votes on a ballot and that there are no misalignments. First, they specify that a different number of valid votes are assigned to each candidate, including write-in candidates for an office, that there is at least one undervote and one overvote assigned to each race or measure, specifying that the different number of votes are in each precinct and in each county. Continuing on, this clears up the ambiguity in allowing that a retest can be completed, not only if there's an error, but if it's not completed in compliance with the law. For example, if there were not a different number of votes assigned to a different number of candidates, really ensuring that there could be no mismatch in alignment and still come out with 7 votes for candidate A, 7 votes for candidate B, and then you wouldn't know. And then finally, on the middle of page 7, this again provides that the results shall be retained, posted on the county clerk's website, and providing that if a retest is required, seals may be broken for that retest. And that was something that we did run into. Page 8, it's just providing for the effective date.
Perfect. Okay.
And if I could speak briefly to the effective immediately, this was something that was changed during the session. I would caution the committee against changing it to be effective July 1st. That's going to fall right within the time that clerks are preparing these tests. And so I think that this reaches a good middle ground. I think that it could be implemented during the 2026 cycle.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Very well done. Any questions for Mr. Rubino? Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rubino, good morning. Thank you for being here. Um, Can we go to page 4?
Yeah.
Under objections? Reading this early this morning, I was just sitting there thinking, is there any concern about something nefarious, something, I guess I'm trying to get arms around why we would allow for, all I've got to do is go to district court and I can jam up the election even after a machine has been tested and sealed. Can you help me with the reasoning behind what we're changing here?
Mr. Rubino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Landon. Certainly, we've testified a lot during the interim on this. I would submit that it's actually caused more concern going the other way. That after a test is conducted, if it provides conclusive evidence, even before the election, and nothing can be challenged, it raises a lot of concerns for people. It's not a low bar to bring a challenge to these things. I mean, when you talk about getting a court order, there's standing issues, there's things like that. The nature of elections is that things do move very quickly. But if there is an issue with the test, and there is an issue that something that might not be aligned properly, if it's caught before the election, our position, the Secretary's position, is certainly that could be caught and should be raised as an issue rather than having something that is conclusively done if a certain amount of time passes. And that was a concern that was brought up in the 2024 election. I think it was the 2024 primary that was highlighted by a number of stakeholders that, the window was missed because the public was not able to participate in public testing of voting machines during the test. It was only a select number of people. And so there was an issue with a perceived lack of transparency in that. And then there was this conclusive proof that nothing could be challenged even before the election if there were concerns raised that there was improper ballot alignment or that the machines would not tabulate during the election. So I think that the discussions that we had throughout the interim were, if there is something, if it's caught before the election, then certainly that should be raised.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Rubino, I remember all of it. I mean, we've had a good, long discussion on this, so I remember. But I guess I'm just trying to figure out what that challenge might be if we just had the tests, the public's invited, we've got the machine locked down, ready to go, we seal it. And then somebody can turn around even after that, go to district court, and you don't have a concern that could delay an election, or it just seems like I'm trying to find a reason why we would, what challenge that might be after it's already been tested and approved and sealed.
Mr. Rubino?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Landon,
Yeah.
certainly understand your position. It's definitely a balance. I would say that there are what we've raised during the interim is that there are certain protections that are in place. You don't just get to raise your hand and say, hey, stop the election. If you have a court order that says, hey, there are issues here, that is certainly a bar that is contemplated in the statute. So I understand that it's a balance, but I think the concern was that having some sort of conclusive, it's a fascinating construction of a statute to say that conclusively, if something is raised and it is valid, no questions can be asked, nothing can be filed in a court. I think that raised a lot of concerns for people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else? Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Rubino. I just had a couple of questions. First of all, on the county clerk's proposed amendment, I was hoping you could address that of the reasoning behind page 2, lines 2, where they'd like to change not later than 5 days before the test to not later than 2 days what is the reason that you landed on the 5 days? If you could explain that to us, and then I'll have a follow-up.
Mr. Rubino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Steinmetz, happy to answer that. What we testified to during the session is, or during the interim, excuse me, is that 5 days provides ample time for public notice, public to get there. 2 days, 48 hours for an initial test. Now, this statute also contemplates 24 hours for a retest. And we did certainly, and I believe 21 of 23 counties had retests in the 2024 primary, specifically to address assigning different number of votes to different number of candidates. And that certainly, that's part of what this bill contemplates, is providing that there is a shorter period of notice for a retest. It's probably going to be within the 2-week window, at least likely, because and Ms. Langford will speak to this, clerks would like to wait at least to where it's a significant short period of time before the election, around 2 weeks, to begin the initial test. But if it's one initial test per election cycle, giving the public ample time and notice provides more transparency to the process, especially with the statute opening this up to the members of the public in a way that 2 days would not.
Follow-up. Thank you, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman. And then the next of the, onto the members of the public, that was a good segue. And I see your reasoning there. What if, 50 people show up? Do they take the machine to the rendezvous center? How are you contemplating? Because before we were kind of limiting the amount of people, which I totally agree. We need to have transparency and we need to be open this to the public. How could they accommodate if a large crowd shows up at the courthouse? Are you contemplating they're taking them in by, groups and the testing goes on for a long time? Or have you just thought about if there's a lot of folks that show up?
Mr. Rubino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Steinmetz, certainly happy to answer that. And the clerks, Ms. Langford will be up here. I didn't hear a lot of heartburn during the interim from the clerks on that piece. I think that there are several aspects of the election that are open to the public. In fact, I think that some clerks do provide more opening to the public than others. And so I think that they are accommodating this. I think that limiting it to candidates and party representatives is a severe step when everybody is able to cast a vote. Everybody wants to ensure that the machines are properly allocating votes and are properly aligned. And so again, it's a balance issue, but we do live in Wyoming and there are many aspects which are open to the public and there has not been an issue.
Thank you for answering that.
Go ahead. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to the last proposed amendment from the clerks on page 7, line 4. It seems like they're concerned about, the current language requiring an overvote, undervote to be tested is impossible to implement. I think they reference maybe a race where there's nobody running against, or there's only one candidate. Do you have any thoughts on that, their proposed amendment on page 7, line 4?
Mr. Chairman, I do
Go ahead,
not
Mr.
have their
Rubino.
amendment in front of me.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I should probably just read
Why
it.
don't you just read it, Senator Boner?
Okay,
Let's-
yeah.
Let's go through the chair, you guys.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
It's all right.
Okay, so it's proposed page 7, line 4, delete precinct and in each county and insert ballot style for each machine type capable of recording an undervote or overvote.
Say it again, Mr. Senator Boner.
Yeah, so page 7, line 4, delete precinct and in each county. And instead insert ballot style for each machine type capable of recording an undervote or overvote.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I assumed that Mr. Rubino had that.
Well, we've got extra copies here if you'd like it, but did you get it now?
Oh, I've written that one in,
Good.
Mr. Chairman. You know, we did speak a little bit to this during the interim. I think that the committee did consider this amendment during the interim. I believe that the committee chose not to adopt it. I think the current language is good. I think that what the clerks had raised regarding an undervote and the possibility that there may not be an undervote if there is possible on the ballot, completely understand that. My concern is ensuring, and I believe that the ballot, each ballot style gets at this, is that each precinct is tested. And I think that because each ballot style is for each precinct, that would accommodate that. Just reading that in.
Thank you. I think there are split precincts too with different ballot styles.
Yeah, so,
Mr. Bennett.
yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, Senator Bonner? Anything else from the committee? Mr. Rubino, stay close. Let's hear from the county clerks. Ms. Langford, are you coming up alone or do you have backup? Oh my gosh. Well, you can certainly handle it. Welcome, Ms. Langford. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm Mary Langford, and I have the honor of representing the county clerks of the state of Wyoming. And I have sent you some proposed amendments. First of all, we've seen this bill before and we've discussed this before. Our purpose is to focus on the administration of Wyoming elections and testing machines and of systems. And this bill will provide for posting and clarity that testing is done before the public. And there's been some concern about that testing has gone on without the public knowing about that and having proper notice. I've submitted some amendments for your consideration and you've discussed some of those already, but I'd like to drill down a little bit more on those.
Absolutely.
The first one has to do with timeline considerations. Two amendments are requested to ensure county clerks have sufficient time to provide notice. Although each county clerk will strive to provide 5 days of notice, ballot printing errors, delays on obtaining ballots, and other unforeseen circumstances can impact when a county clerk is able to test equipment. As such, we request the following amendments to ensure we have sufficient time to provide public notice of the tests. And as you'll see, it's page 2, line 2, go from 5 days to 2 days. On page 5, line 20, again, go from 5 days to 2 days.
Got it.
And this has to do with the mechanics on the other side. If you find that you have printing errors on your ballots, if you find you haven't received things timely, it's the mechanics and the administration on the other side. Surely I know that in my experience, I want to get this work done further away from the election than close to the election, because there are things that are happening days before the election, a couple days before the election, that come up really unexpected that you need to deal with. So they would err on the side of going to 5, but they'd like to have the lenience to be able to go to 2. And that's that request.
Okay. We got a question from Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious, Ms. Langford, you know, I sure know where you're coming from, having been in the media and also in the public relations game. Sometimes it's difficult to meet deadlines and whatever. What do you consider adequate notice? I was thinking about that this morning. How in the world, how in this day and age of media the way it is, I don't even know what public notice would be adequate.
Ms. Langford.
Mr. Chairman,
have any of
Senator
those?
Landon, how many of you get a save the date thing for a wedding that's next year? You know, that's kind of that kind of a thing.
I stay away from weddings. Ms.
Yeah. But that's like a popular thing that happens, you know, and in a case like this, there is a schedule. There's an election calendar that's put out. Secretary of State develops that every election season that will delineate when these things are supposed to be happening. So there's that hard thing that usually shows up on people's websites. There's Facebooking that goes on. There's, different kinds of things that go on. I know, you make your best effort to make it public, but sometimes that's hard because you're hung up trying to find your ballots that FedEx didn't deliver or those kinds of things. And that's all this is. It's just to be able to, yes, be adequate, but be realistic as well.
Let's get to your other items.
Okay.
That's all right.
My second item talks about record retention. The original records of election administration should be held by the office conducting the election. As such, we advocate that the original testing certifications and documents be retained by the county clerks and copies be provided to the Secretary of State's office. And where this would affect this bill on page 3, line 20, strike where it says this and insert where that it says a copy of this. On page 3, line 22, again, delete copy and insert the certificate. So the clerks would keep the original certificate and copy the Secretary of State's office. And again, these records are kept. They're available. It isn't like threw it away. No, it's available. It could be reproduced. It could be a certified certificate. So.
And I think Mr. Rubino indicated that would probably go well with his office as
Right.
well.
Right.
So keep going.
Okay, my third item, and this has to do with the undervotes, overvotes, ability to implement. Current language requiring an overvote and an undervote to be tested for every measure is impossible to implement. For instance, uncontested races where only a write-in space appears do not allow a voter to register an overvote. In a vote for one race where no one filed for office, a single write-in space will appear. Furthermore, electronic ballot marking devices do not allow voters to overvote. So what that means that if you are voting on an express vote on a touch screen and you overvote, it tells you that. It tells you that you have overvoted and you get a do-over, basically. And you can fix that, or you can choose to overvote, but you have that opportunity. To ensure every ballot style is adequately tested, the county clerks are able to test them, we suggest the following. On page 7, line 4, delete precinct and in each county and insert ballot style for each machine type capable of recording an undervote or an overvote. And I hope that helps you understand what we're driving at.
Okay, questions? So Ms. Langford, with your discussion here, do the clerks support this bill? And does supporting this bill depend on their amendments?
The clerks support the bill.
Okay,
We'd appreciate the amendments.
got it. That's clear enough. Anybody else? Senator Dockstader?
Follow up to that. Will they accept the bill without these amendments? Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Ms. Langford.
I believe the only issue here that is difficult is the undervote and the overvote testing.
Got it.
The days that,
Third of the day.
yeah, that we would appreciate that. The certificate, I think we agree on. But the undervote and the overvote is the critical piece.
Got it. Anybody else for Ms. Langford? Thank you, Ms. Langford. Let's hear from the public now. Who would like to go first? And let's fill up the chairs. Ms. Simmons, is the league going to testify on this bill? Why don't you come on up then? Anybody else want to testify on this bill? Department of Transportation, are you here to testify on this bill? Power Up Wyoming, you here to testify on this bill? Mr. Moline, come on up.
Good morning, Chairman, Committee.
Go
I'm
ahead,
Gail
Ms.
Simmons with Civics 307, a nonpartisan nonprofit concerned about civic engagement and participation. While my remarks are addressed to the committee, the audience that matters most on all of these is the public, the citizens who depend on a transparent, trustworthy, and timely election process. This bill may seem technical, but its consequences are anything but. Wyoming's election system works. Machines are tested before every election. Clerks certify them. Procedures are transparent. There is no documented failure of the system this bill claims to fix. So what's the purpose of removing the presumption that a legally certified voting system is valid? It's not about transparency. That already exists. And it's not about trust. This bill undermines it. It introduces a legal black hole. Anyone can sue to challenge a voting system with no statutory definition of what cause they must show and no deadline for doing so within that framework. That means elections could be derailed with last-minute litigation or even coordinated efforts to block machine use altogether. There is no fail-safe here, no limit to how often or how widely these challenges can occur. And while it expands the Secretary of State's power to approve tests, it doesn't require transparency, consistency, or reporting that addresses the issue. We should be improving public access to information about election systems, not codifying pathways to obstruct them. This bill invites disruption and discourages trust. You don't have to believe in conspiracy theories to see the damage this bill could do. I am particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, as Senator Steinmetz pointed out, about crowd control. In a time when the clerks are already under a significant amount of pressure, which I would say is the root cause of the one incident that people keep bringing up, is that pressure, is that they now have to also deal with crowd control in a very compressed time frame. That should not be their primary concern. It ought to be the accuracy of the testings. So at the very least, if you decide to go forward with this, what I believe is an unnecessary bill, at least put some kind of limit on the number of public that can be allowed due to space, so that the clerks, when they notice, can specify how many of the public can be allowed in. And again, I do not believe that crowd control is the primary concern that we should all have on doing these testing. And I stand for questions.
Questions for Ms. Simmons? Questions for Ms. Simmons? Ms. Simmons, is it conceivable that if a whole bunch of members of the public wish to attend the testing, that the clerks could by lot choose members of the public? Could we do something like that?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely. Some kind of mechanism, both in terms of making the announcement that they state what is the total number that can be allowed so that people know in advance that it's not going to be a free-for-all for everyone. And then a mechanism for them, if it is overwhelming the number, to select who can be in there so that they're not dealing with crowd control on an ongoing basis. They're actually managing that process in advance.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the clerks would think about that too. And every circumstance is going to be different. The room where the testing occurs, seems like there should be a minimum number of members of the public that are guaranteed to be able to be there. But that the selection may be by lot. If we could think of an amendment along those lines.
So,
We could talk
Mr.
about that.
Chairman,
Go ahead, Ms. Simmons.
the security and accuracy of that testing has to be the premier consideration. And crowd control is not a part of that.
It actually works against some of the other
Yes, sir.
objectives. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Anything else? Ms. Herman, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Committee Chairman and
Pull that up
Committee.
close because you're soft-spoken.
I'm Marguerite Herman for the League of Women Voters, and without replowing the old ground, I endorse the comments from Gail Simmons and the clerks, noticing that some of the amendments are simply functioning to make this bill work. I will recall the words from Mr. Rubino of balance. And I would encourage you to call on balance on all election-related bills, especially maybe this one, that are still in play anyway, is that what is gained, the argument is made, well, it's worth the difficulty created. And I would argue that it is not, that the current system, as Ms. Simmons referred to does work and is that the crowd control issue is a real one. I talked to our Laramie County clerk and she'll talk about, and it is crowd control because sometimes the behavior can be disruptive. I think the clerk needs to be able to be empowered to control both numbers and behavior. It has been a problem. There are solutions, but I guess what I'm saying is the difficulties of timing, access, and other issues, objections that this bill does is not going to build trust. It's not going to make the job better, done better, more securely. It's not really going to improve what is the gold standard, which is security and accuracy. And so that balance, it seems to be very unbalanced. You're not really achieving the desired result at great expense. So I would say that apply the balance test right now and would indicate that the bill is not necessary. That if you do think that the balance test does work out, I would really encourage you to adopt the amendments proposed by the clerks.
Thank you, Ms. Herman. Questions for Ms. Herman? Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one question. Why do you think allowing the public into the process more would not build trust in our elections? For example, I have been an election judge. I've seen all the equipment, how they treat it, how, all of the specifications. And for me, it has really educated me. Our county clerk did a wonderful job of the training. And I thought it helped me a lot, especially in making decisions on these bills that we're seeing today. And so why do you think allowing the public to come in and have that transparency doesn't build trust?
Mr. Chairman, good question. I would say that the original, as it stands now, where you have representatives come in, trusted representatives who can witness and then will attest to, yes, it was done by the book, it was done well, et cetera, because you can't have every member of the public in there. We have 50,000 voters in Laramie County and they can't all watch it. So you have to really trust the officials, trust your party representatives. I agree that, the public, the more they know, I think the more they trust. Absolutely. At least in Laramie County, that's been my experience. That trust usually is undermined by people who misunderstand or just get wrong information. But you can't base everyone's trust because they can't all watch. Maybe stream the process, although people will distrust that. So I don't know how you got everyone to trust it except to have representatives there who can attest, yes, it was done properly.
Anybody else for Ms. Herman? Ms. Herman, along the lines of Senator Steinmetz's question, I think parties are less representative of voters than they used to be. I think that they've become more polarized and the voters are somewhere feeling left out by parties. And so I think having party representations doesn't satisfy the public necessarily about the observers.
Well, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman, that is probably a valid point. I don't know how you pick the representatives, the handful that can be managed just physically in a small space. Again, you can't have everybody come in. You can't send everyone Pine Bluffs, come in and watch, et cetera. And so the issue of trust is problematic. I will agree with you, but practically speaking, there are limits on what you can do with people in the room. Again, you could stream it, try to, if that can be used at least to inform people about the measures taken by our county clerks to ensure their machines, and we use express marking machines, other counties don't. But to some extent, I will just put it out that there are some people who will always have suspicions regardless of what they see with their own eyes. So I don't know what the solution is for the public. If you don't trust the representative, picking other representatives, I don't know. I don't want to add anything to this
We get you.
process.
We got
But
it.
I would, I just think you're losing more than you're gaining with this bill.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I think that we did stream the moon landing and most people don't believe that one either. So, or there are people that don't. Mr. Moline, welcome.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, your last comment caught me a little off guard, one that I find ironic and timely. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in support of this bill. My members want open, fair, honest, accurate elections. I think this bill helps lead towards that road. Ms. Herman made a comment that I wholeheartedly agree with. The more that people know, the more that they can trust. And I would add on to that, the more people that know, the more trust there is in that system. And I think that's the thing that this bill does, is it broadens it out. And Mr. Chairman, your comment about parties maybe not being completely representative, I agree with that. I think this broadens that out. Some people that aren't in the leadership of the party can see it, see that it works. And the biggest thing that gives me confidence in this bill is that the clerks say they can do it. They're the ones that are going to have to do it. And when they say they can do it, it gives me faith in this bill. So sitting in support of this bill, Mr. Chairman, I would take any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moline. Questions for Mr. Moline? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to testify on this bill? Anybody else in the room? Is there anybody online?
Mr. Chairman, we have Jenny DeSaro, who's raised her hand.
Please let her in and checking again if there's anybody in the room. Ms. DeSaro? Welcome.
Good morning. Good, thank you. Jenny DeSaro with the Equality State Policy Center. Our members support fair elections and transparent government. And I want to begin with, wouldn't it be lovely if we had a bill that the county clerks came and brought to us all and said, this is a problem and here is the solution to the problem. And this bill is not that case. This bill is a case where the executive branch has told the local counties that this needs to be done, and the local counties have been trying and working their hardest to make it work for them. And there's still amendments, and this is through the whole interim, there's still amendments that they're bringing to try to make it work. So bless their hearts for being so amicable to create solutions. But the reality is that this bill is not creating a solution. Mistakes happen. Human mistakes happen. And that is what this is in reference to. 23 counties, one county had a mistake. The other county clerks, the 23 counties put their heads together, created a solution using the existing system, and it was solved. That is what creates the trust in our elections. This is offering a pathway for disruption. Trust happens through education and honesty, and county clerks admitting there was a problem. They worked through this and created a solution. So this is adding extra micromanagement. I will say the other element is Senator Steinmetz mentioned that she was a poll worker, and it occurred to me that one of the perhaps trust building elements in this bill might be that if you have poll workers who already have some background of what the testing looks like, this is a tight timeline. This is like, if they were the ones that were there, then they have been trained, they understand, they can recognize if there was a mistake or something, and they are already a trusted witness to our elections in our current process, versus any Joe Schmo from the public who's never looked at the process of a machine, of the testing works, or has no concept of how the back end of our elections work, comes in and because they don't understand it or they haven't taken the time to educate themselves before showing up to a test, just opens up for mayhem. So I think my colleagues who have testified have addressed some of those issues, but I caution moving forward on this bill. And with that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. DeSaro. Questions, Senator Steinmetz?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment. I want to set the record straight. I was not a poll watcher. I was an election judge. There's a difference,
Sorry.
quite a big difference, actually. And then secondarily, I guess my question would be is if someone, a member of the public is curious enough to show up and are educated enough to know that they have questions about how the process is working, are you advocating for denying them access to seeing this testing?
Ms. DeSaro?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Senator Steinmetz. Actually, no, what I would probably recommend is maybe there's a whole nother bill that talks about how to educate the public on elections. So we have had many opportunities. I go back to the May committee meeting for the corporations, where our clerks went through an exhaustive presentation of how the machines work, and public was allowed to be in the room. They got to participate. They got to watch online. Those kinds of things, those are the times and places to educate and allow the public. When you're in the process of setting up the space for the election, like it's a strict timeline. We want security. We want all of these things with our elections, and that is not the proper time to bring in newbies into the process. I think that there are times to set up the stage, not when everyone's under pressure and trying to create accurate and security. So I think there's a different time and place. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Ms. DeSaro. Thank you, Senator. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. DeSaro. I think it does. I think you're advocating that you don't believe the public should be able to see the testing of the machines during the actual testing, that you are advocating for them to only be able to see how the machines are tested at other times. Is that correct?
Ms. DeSaro?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Steinmetz, actually, if we go back to the original language in this bill on page 6, line 4 through 6, and it was the political party representatives and representatives of independent candidates may be present for the test. So historically, Wyoming has allowed representatives of the public to watch this. And that is a way to add the security and the transparency. What I am opposed to is opening it up for a mob of potential folks who want to cram into a room to watch this. And so what I'm advocating for is representatives of the public be present as is currently in the legislation, and removing the members of the public.
I think it's clear from both sides, if that's okay. Anything else for Ms. DeSaro? Anything else? Thank you, Ms. DeSaro. Back on the bill, last chance for testimony. Committee, you've heard testimony. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, move the bill.
Got a motion by Dockstader. Discussion on the bill? Any proposed amendments?
Mr. Chairman, I would, and I'd like to propose that we move the County Clerks Association amendments 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Can we?
Do you want them all as one group, or do you want to do that individually?
Let's just do them individually. It might be easier.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, then page 2, line 2, delete 5, insert 2.
Okay, and we might as well do the page 5 and 2 as well.
Yeah.
Is
page
that
5.
okay with you?
Yes, sir.
So everybody, it's basically the first paragraph, the county clerk's discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Chair will vote aye. All those opposed?
No.
Got, I think it's 4-1, so we changed that to 2. Record retention, I think this was agreeable to everyone. Senator Dockstader.
Mr. Chairman, then amend both page 3, line 20, strike this and insert a copy of this. Page 3, line 22, delete and copy and insert the certificate.
Pretty sure that was agreeable to everybody. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, any opposed? That's carried.
Mr. Chairman, page 7, line 4, delete precinct in each county and insert ballot style for each machine type capable of recording an undervote or overvote.
Okay, discussion? There really are split precincts, you guys, and this does,
I got 2 amendments.
yeah, it does happen. So, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. Senator Landon, do you have another one?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want to go to page 2. We've had a lot of discussion this morning regarding, how are we going to handle, if 100 people show up and try to get into a 10 by 12 room. So I guess I'll throw this out for discussion, propose an amendment on page 2, line 12. In front of members of the public, I would suggest saying a minimum of 3 members of the public may be present. And I guess I'll stop there. I've got a suggestion down on line 16 as well.
You want to go ahead and just wrap them together?
Let me go ahead and do that, Mr. Chairman. Down on line 16, after the period, public members may be limited by lot if necessary. That at least gives some direction to our clerks to be able to handle if we've got way too many people and there's just no way to handle. So that's my stab at this, Mr. Chairman. Again, on line 12, a minimum of 3 members of the public, and then down on line 16, public members may be limited by lot if necessary.
Okay, thank you, Senator Landon. Discussion. I think it's a good solution, Senator. And supposing only 2 members of the public show up, the word is may after the members of the public may, old language on line 12. So you could have 1 member if that's all that showed up. But if multiple people show up, you have to allow at least 3 is the way I understand that. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we take the leeway to have the Secretary of State's office comment on that and maybe
Certainly we
the
can.
county clerks as well?
You bet. That's perfectly appropriate. Thank you. Mr. Rubino, you want to go first? Did you get it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I did write it in. I understand the amendment conceptually. I understand the idea. Frankly, I think you're setting the clerks up for failure with this. I think it's going to cause a lot more issues. It's going to cause a lot of consternation with the public if it's limited to 3 and this chosen by lot language is in there. I don't know where the number 3 came from. I think that, no, and I completely understand it. I understand it conceptually. I don't think that there's been any testimony throughout the interim or today that they can't accommodate a certain number of people. 3 is a really low number. I would hesitate to put a limit on there because I don't think that there hasn't been any testimony from any clerks that they can't accommodate this. We do have holdover rooms in a great many counties where you could have people observe and have it streamed. There's nothing that would prohibit them from taking a video and having a holdover room. I think that leaving the decision up to the county on how to accommodate people is going to set the counties up for success, and it's going to set the public up for success. So those are the reasons that I think we're opposed to this amendment.
Okay, thank you. Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rubino, don't you think though that 3 actually takes care of at least the public representation? I'm thinking you put them in another room with a video, that's not being in the same room. You put more than 3, thinking of my clerk's office, and they can be there, they can watch it, but they can stay out of the way too and let the clerk and their staff conduct business. Why doesn't 3 meet the need to have the public involved, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rubino, thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Limiting it to 3 members of the public when there's been no testimony that more than 3 can be accommodated, I think sets our counties up for conflict with members of the public. Putting it explicitly in statute that only 3 technically right now, if you have 1 independent candidate on the ballot, 2 representatives from each party, and more than 1 independent candidate on the ballot, there's more people that could attend under current statute right now than could attend under what the proposed change would be.
So, who wants to go first? Senator Landon?
Well, Mr. Chairman, my suggestion is a minimum of 3. A minimum of 3 members of the public may be present. It seems to me that offers some flexibility to our clerks to, let's say 5 or 6 show up that morning, or maybe even 8. This says a minimum of 3 members of the public should be allowed to participate and come in and look. I would just point that out. I mean, it's a minimum of 3 is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, we could finesse this. It could
but
be
we
3 members in addition to the party members. I mean, we're just trying to.
I'm
give
just
them a
trying to
tool.
arrive at something that might work, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Let's pile on with Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm looking for clarity because the way I read it, where he put the language in a minimum of 3 members, that would be the county clerk has to at least allow 3, but if a crowd shows up, then they can limit them by lot, and maybe
If
you want to
necessary.
make that, yeah, if necessary. So I wasn't thinking you were putting a maximum on.
Mm-mm.
I was thinking you're just putting a minimum, which we could, I mean, I don't really care one way or the other. I mean, I do care. Don't get me wrong. But just in reference to what I'm trying to be specific about what you're trying to do, Senator.
Mr. Rubino, we'll give you one last shot and then we'll go to the clerks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly appreciate it. I understand conceptually that the minimum sets out 3. I think that what you're going to have, and look, I understand, but when you put things into statute that the bare minimum that you can have is 3, and you can turn everybody else away, certainly that raises a perception that it's not open. So that's why we're opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Possibly you could add additional direction. The clerk shall attempt to accommodate as many members of the public as possible, but a minimum of 3, something like that. Ms. Langford, do you want to weigh in? We need you to.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I can be helpful on this topic. I think we all believe that we want to have as much transparency and be able to get as many people in the room as we possibly can. I testified yesterday on a bill that had to do with the post-election audit and the fact that people can come and watch that during the canvass, and that's a public situation also. But we had great concerns about the security, because you have to secure the machines, you have to secure the ballots, you have to have all of this security, and that's going to be paramount as opposed to how many people we can get in the room. And as you all know, think about your courthouses and the spaces that clerks work in to do this work. It gets really crowded. On another note, though, my experience, we didn't ever really have a lot of people that showed up for this.
Western
Really?
County, the whole county goes.
Yeah. So see, and that's the difference. Yeah. That's the difference that you have where you are and what you're doing, you
Of
know?
course, it's 4,000 people, but.
Yeah. Well, that's about the size of Sublette County. But it's really hard to anticipate what that is. And I can understand them, particularly with the tenor of the public, that they want to make sure that our equipment is running right, that it is secure, just like we are. Maybe it's that sticker on the wall that says there's only 25 people in this room that tells us how many we can have for that. I don't know what the magic number is, and I tend to agree with Mr. Rubino. If we have to stand and fight over drawing lots, and if we have to say, okay, you 3 people get to come in or whatever, we're trying to run an election. I don't have a really good suggestion for you. I totally agree. If we can get as many people in the room to watch, that's what we're going to do.
Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw the amendment.
Okay.
And maybe we can work on this as it goes forward. I'm still trying to get arms around how we're going to handle people. And I think I'm concerned that it's going to create some problems for our clerks, but we'll work on it.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms.
Appreciate that.
Langford. Anything else on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, just real quickly.
Bet, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, another, go to page 4, under objections. Committee, I'm really concerned about taking the sideboards off of this and just making it wide open. It just feels like a complaint regarding, or a challenge complaint regarding a machine that's already sealed. That complaint can be literally made before the election, the day before the election. This is open-ended. It feels like to me we need to limit that in some way to assure ourselves that we're going to have an election. And maybe I'm reading this wrong, but what we've done to this language, we've amended it to being wide open. If a complaint is filed in the district court, we can objecting to whatever, we can shut things down. So I would suggest that we might consider on line 13, after the machine is sealed, if after the machine is sealed, if a complaint is filed within 5 days in the district court, is what I'm searching for here, committee. And I'm sorry, I'm
Right.
not locked in, but I'm wondering if we wouldn't want to at least state if you want to file a complaint regarding the machine, it needs to be done in a certain period of time. A complaint is filed within 5 days in district court.
So just trying to help here.
Yeah,
A voting machine prepared for an election and certified by the county clerk may be challenged within 5 days after the machine is sealed and before the election if a complaint is filed in the district court. Is
that
that
gets
certified?
exactly to where I was going. Yeah, thank you for your help on that.
Is there a discussion about that?
Yeah,
Senator Boner.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in general on this concept, I think I benefit from knowing what happens after the complaint is filed. Is there anything compelling the court to say, no, we have to stop the election, or can they just, what happens if they simply ignore it if it's the day before and the election proceeds
Could ignore
as
it.
normal?
They could do a summary judgment, or I don't know.
Right? It seems like we might have to trust the courts a little bit on this one, as much as I'm reticent to say that right now. But I'm just hope, I think a little bit more information about how a court would handle such a complaint would be helpful for me, given, the fact that I'm not an attorney. But it seems to me that they're not necessarily required to even make a decision before the election if it's a short time frame. And if that's the case, then the election proceeds. But I don't know that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to put the new language and the old language in perspective, because let's just read the old language. A voting machine prepared for an election and certified by the county clerk shall be conclusively presumed to be properly prepared unless within 2 days after the machine is sealed and certified, a complaint is filed in the district court. So I'm really trying to understand the two different versions, and I'm not seeing as much difference as other people are seeing.
So, Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate your help on the proposed amendment. I just go back to, no sideboards on this. It just gives me heartburn because it just feels like if we're going to file a complaint in district court, we're going to wait till about 2 days before the election. If we want to gum things up. That's what I'm trying to avoid here is.
Yeah, and Senator Lennon, the old language at least drove that event to happen within 2 days after the machine is sealed,
That's correct.
which may give you more time before the election. Anybody else have any comments? Senator Doc
Mr.
Stater.
Chairman, I'm going to stand with Senator Landon on that. 2 or 5 days, at least there's a mark that says that's it. We've got to get it done in this amount of time.
Okay,
and we're not caught with surprises moments before an election.
so we have Senator Landon's motion, which you're leaving, we're working on, right?
Yeah.
Which would say a voting machine prepared for an election and certified by the county clerk may be challenged within 5 days after the machine is sealed and a complaint is filed in the district court. So you might change the and to by, just throw that out there. So a voting machine prepared for an election certified by the county clerk may be challenged within 5 days after the machine is sealed by a complaint filed in the district court. Does that help you?
I believe it gets us there. And I think this is a little bit of a compromise. Rather than throwing it wide open, I like that we're putting some kind of limit there.
Further discussion on the
Yeah.
amendment? Do you accept the word by in the? okay.
Yes.
Further discussion on the friendly amendment and the main amendment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Got 2 noes, 3 ayes. That is carried. Back on the bill. Is there anything else on the bill? Could we call the roll on the bill? Is this your first roll call?
It is.
Wow, lots of pressure.
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote for Senate File 28 as amended. Senator Boner?
Aye.
Senator Dockstader?
Aye.
Senator Landon?
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz? Chairman Case?
Aye.
5 aye.
Great. We're gonna keep going, you guys. I'm hoping that a couple of these bills won't last as long as that last one did. So we'll go to Senate File 30, election voter registration revisions. This is pretty simple concept, I hope. Mr. Rubino, take us home on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Rubino, Policy Director for the Secretary of State's Office. Yes, Mr. Chairman, this was discussed during the interim. I think this is a clean bill and something that both the clerks and our office believe fits the intent of the legislature with respect to 2 different concepts. One has been pre-existing for as long as I have been alive and then some. And then the other deals with the durational residency requirement that was passed as part of House Bill 156 last year in the 2025 legislative session. In speaking with the county clerk specifically about implementing House Bill 156, which was House Enrolled Act 57, specifically the durational residency aspect, we began talking about existing statute, both with the passage of that act and how it treats incoming residents who may not meet the durational residency requirement for the upcoming election, as well as how the election code has historically treated those who turn 18 prior to the election at which they offer to vote, but not before the next upcoming election. As the language currently reads, in some areas of statute, an individual in some circumstances may legally begin the process of registering to vote, but would be prevented from voting in the upcoming election. Specifically, in what we discussed throughout the interim, I believe in Lander, and then this bill was ultimately moved forward and sponsored by the committee in the meeting in Casper, the statutes dealing with Wyoming Statute 18-16-102, 22-1-102, 22-3-102, 22-3-103, and 22-29-104 specify that an individual must be at least 18 and have been a bona fide resident of Wyoming for not less than 30 days prior to the election at which he offers to vote. And in the case of an 18-year-old, there's actually a pre-existing conflict. There's more of a conflict. Some statutes say next election. Some statutes say election at which they offer to vote. So it's a little bit more messy, but it's a good fix all around. It contemplates that an individual be at least 18 before the election at which they offer to vote, not necessarily the next election. In both instances, we believe this presents a unique scenario in which an individual could theoretically meet the qualifications to begin the registration process, but they would need to be prevented from voting in the upcoming election. It may seem pedantic that we're splitting hairs, but I think the way this plays out on the ground, and the real issue that arises is in a primary election cycle after the registration closes, right? So we have same day election registration in Wyoming. So in that, before the election day registration period closes. So between day 30 in the instance of durational residency, between day 30 days preceding the election and day 15 or 14 preceding the election, you could begin the registration process, but you don't have to cast a ballot. This does not affect voters who cast a ballot within the 14-day window, because if you register to vote, if you're not an existing registrant, you register to vote within that 14-day period, Wyoming law requires that you have to also be able to simultaneously cast a ballot. That's what enables us to have an NVRA exemption, same day election day registration, including absentee voting. So since this is less than 30 days prior to the upcoming primary election, but outside of the 14-day registration lockout period, an individual may be able to go through the actions to register to vote, but they could in no way under the law be entitled to cast a ballot. This presents a couple of issues with administration for the clerks. It also presents a number of issues with, I think, what the legislature intended was that 18-year-olds and durational residency requirement before the next election, the election that you're registering to vote for. So this bill contemplates, and I'm happy to go through it, but all it does, Mr. Chairman, is go through all the instances. In fact, why don't I just briefly go through it,
You
Mr.
do
Chairman, if that's
whatever
all
you
right.
need to do.
So it goes through all the instances, typically in Title 22, but Title 18, because it deals with
Counties.
qualified electors. We dealt with this all throughout the interim on different number of bills, specifying that you'll be at least 18 years of age on the day of the next election, and that you have been a bona fide resident of the state of Wyoming for not less than 30 days before the date of the next election. It does not touch statutes in which either 18-year-olds or 30-day durational residency requirements already contemplate that. There are some areas where they do specify next election, but I just think that it's a conflict within the statutes. Clerks and the Secretary of State's office have spoken. We presented this bill together in Lander as a way that we could tighten this up and further clarify the intent of the legislature. And I don't believe there are any amendments that were proposed either during the interim or today. At least I'm not aware of any from us or the clerks.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Well done. Questions for Mr. Rubino? Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Langford. You can just do a me too if you want.
Mr. Chairman, Mary Langford for the county clerks. This is our number one priority bill from the County Clerks Association. We appreciate it. We like it. We have no amendments, and I just stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Langford. Questions for Ms. Langford? Thank you. Any testimony from the public? Can we be quick? Be great if you were. Ms. Simmons, anybody else coming up? Let's fill out the chairs. Ms. Simmons, the floor is yours.
Chairman, committee, I'm still Gail Simmons from Civics 307. I want to say that it is a refreshing change to actually have a bill here that addresses something that's needed. So of the 10 corporations bills on elections, one of them actually addresses something that's needed. What a refreshing change, completely in agreement with you. Thank you for taking this on.
I think she just insulted us, actually, if you went with. Ms. Simmons, thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions? Appreciate it. Anybody online? All right, committee, you've heard the testimony. Was your pleasure? I heard Steinmetz first. Any proposed amendments? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote for Senate File 30. Senator Boner. Senator Dockstader.
Aye.
Senator Landon. Senator Steinmetz. Chairman Case.
Aye. Mr.
Mr.
Meyer, you can start moving up. Go ahead, announce the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 aye.
Thank you very much. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 31, Uniform Mortgage Modification Act. That's easy for somebody to say, really. Uniform Mortgage Modification Act.
Like uniforms.
Where's your uniform, Mr. Meyer? Welcome. I guess you do have your lawyer banker uniform on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I got my uniform on.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Scott Meyer on behalf of the Uniform Laws Commission. For those of you who don't know, Uniform Laws Commission was formed in 1980 or 1892 to create nonpartisan state legislation. It deals with areas of the Uniform Commercial Code as well as other areas of property, trust, estates, family law, criminal law, and other areas where uniformity is desired. What I have before you is the Uniform Mortgage Modification Act. I know that we've discussed this in Lander and in Casper, but I'll go through as much detail as you want. If there's things that we go over real quick and you have questions, please don't hesitate to interrupt me.
Maybe kind of a high level, if that's all right.
Sure.
But do go through the bill.
So the Uniform Mortgage Modification Act is an act that clarifies and simplifies the law governing mortgage modifications. In this area right now, in this time period that we have, you can see interest rates are starting to drop. This is a prime example of where mortgage modification would make a lot of sense. What we want to do is be able to have these changes. The lenders want to be able to make the changes without having to go through the whole rigmarole of making sure that they maintain their priority. You know, that this means that we're going to have to go through a lot of paperwork, but the priority is the number one issue. Without priority, a senior lender will maybe more likely not to want to modify that mortgage unless they get either the consent from or sue to get the consent from a junior lien holder. Junior lien holders aren't obligated to do this, so they either say no or they hold it for ransom till they get whatever. The other thing is that we're trying to benefit the consumer, the borrower, because if we make these changes according to this statute, there wouldn't have to be another title search. There wouldn't have to be another appraisal. There wouldn't have to be other filing costs. This would just become automatic for those that are in the safe harbor. For everything else, if it's not in the safe harbor, then the old laws apply. So that's basically that in a nutshell. Now, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I'm going to take off my Uniform Laws Commission hat and put on my Wyoming banker's hat. I know we talked about this in Casper, and I was pretty sure as I went back and looked that we had an amendment that got thrown in here, but it didn't make it into this draft. So I want to go over that really quickly if we could.
Okay, go ahead.
If we look at, I want to direct your attention to page 10, beginning on line 21. There's subparagraph C. And it reads, the effect of a mortgage modification not described in subsection B of this section is not governed by the act. The problem that the bankers and probably other lenders will have is that this is pretty open-ended. What happens if there's a modification that's not on that list and the statutes do not apply? Then this line puts in there. But what happens if there's an increase in mortgage rates? Usually that isn't a problem. But the way that this law, this Uniform Act is written, is that the courts have to look at, see what other states are doing. Well, as Mr. Chairman, you know, we like to do a little home cooking in Wyoming when it comes to these things. And I don't want Wyoming's courts or Wyoming to be subject to what is happening in Utah or what's happening in Colorado. Wyoming doesn't have any current decisions about increases in mortgage, but other states do. So to keep things where I think they are on there, I wanted to add a sentence on the right behind that one on subsection C. This act is not to be construed so as to negate the validity or priority of a mortgage modification not described in subsection B. And like I say, why is this needed? I don't want to have Wyoming be subject to anybody else's laws. We have our own laws, and that's why they should be.
Would you repeat it maybe a little bit slower? It had a lot of knots in there.
Sure. This act is not to be construed so as to negate the validity or priority of a mortgage modification not described in subsection B. I believe that that amendment there and this act then with that will have a lot of benefits for lenders by providing the clarity that we need to have when mortgage modifications. But with this addition in here, I don't want this act to be used as a sledgehammer for mortgage modifications that are not protected by this act. So
Just to talk about your language there, and maybe Senator Bonner's going there, those two sentences seem contradictory. First sentence says, the effect of a mortgage modification not described in section B of this section is not governed by the act. And it says this act is not to be construed so as to negate the validity or priority of a mortgage modification not described in section B. They seem like they say two different things. And they might be in conflict. Help me with this.
okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first sentence that's in there says, okay, if it's not covered under this thing, then there's no exception and our own laws apply.
Okay.
Okay? By adding the next sentence, what we're saying is, and if it's not covered under there, our laws will apply, but we will not have to look to other states to see that. We aren't going to negate the validity of this thing because it's not in there. And the reason I say, like I say that is because the way that the statute is written, courts will look to what other states because it's a uniform act.
It doesn't say other states.
No, but because it is a uniform act, I'm concerned that the courts will look to see how other states are handling it. And other states do allow for things that Wyoming doesn't.
I'm thinking about it. Senator Bonner, I didn't mean to get in front of you.
Okay, yeah, I'm just wondering, wouldn't we just delete paragraph C? Would that be an easier way of dealing with that concern?
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Meyer.
Senator Boner, I don't think that that would help us much because then there's a question of which one of these exceptions do apply or don't apply and whether that affects my current mortgage modification. The idea is to give them, here's a safe harbor. But what I don't want to have is other laws dictating when it doesn't fall under that safe harbor. I want our Wyoming laws to apply.
We'll work on this a little bit.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Meyer? Any other questions? Let's see if there's any public testimony on the bill. Any public testimony on the Uniform Mortgage Modification Act? Anything online? Wait, we do have Mr. Schultz is coming up. Got to be quick around here.
I will.
Welcome,
Sorry,
Mr. Schultz.
sorry, Mr. Chairman, Shane Schultz, on behalf of Wyoming Credit Unions. I don't want to keep you any longer than you've already been here, but just to reiterate the points that Mr. Meyer brought up, kind of from the banking standpoint, the credit union stand in support of this bill. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do you support the amendment, Mr. Meyer?
I think we'd like to work with him on it or review it. And if there's any changes on the amendment or if we have any tweaks, we'll come to the floor with it and talk to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other
Right.
questions for Mr. Schultz? Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Anybody else in the audience? Anybody online? Committee, you've heard the testimony. What is your pleasure? Got a motion by Landon. Any discussion? Can we go to Mr. Meyer's proposed amendment? Would somebody like to offer it just to get it moving? Mr. Meyer, don't you have any friends up here? Senator Landon?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't get it all written down. I'm hoping for help from Sue and Jesse, but
I think,
line 23, page 10 is where we're going with the amendment.
yes, and the language that I caught
yeah.
was this add, after the period, add, this act is not to be construed so as to negate the validity or priority of a mortgage modification not described in section B. Do I have that correct, Mr. Meyer?
Subsection B.
Subsection B. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Steinmetz.
Mr. Chairman, I just quickly on the bill, I would offer maybe a friendly
Let's hear it.
tweak to the language.
Let's hear it.
The priority or validity of a mortgage modification not described in section B the priority of a mortgage modification not described in section B shall be valid.
Mr. Meyer.
I think that works, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator.
Say it again, Senator Steinmetz.
Just to add after by this act on line 23, the priority of a mortgage modification not described in section B shall be valid.
Okay, is that friendly, Senator Landon?
Yeah, I think so.
And Mr. Meyer, it's friendly to you, right?
That's correct.
Any other discussion? So that, I still don't get the other states part. I get that this is a uniform act and you'll look to it, the courts will look to other states' application of the act. But what you're trying to say is look to Wyoming, don't look to the other states for modifications not described in B.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. The
Why can't
idea
we
is
say
that we
that?
have safe harbors. Without the safe harbors, everything else still applies. And I want the Wyoming laws to apply to those things outside the safe harbor and not another state.
And why don't we say it that way?
I just did the best I could at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's work with what we got. But it seems like it'd be clear if you instructed the courts to interpret it using Wyoming law if it's not covered in B. Seems like that would be better, but obviously there's no lawyers up here. They're all down there. So you win. Okay, let's work with this one, and if we need to tweak it later, we can. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Any opposed? I think that's carried. Is there any other discussion on the bill? Can we call the roll on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote for Senate File 31 as amended. Senator Boner? Senator Dockstetter?
Aye.
Senator Landon?
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz?
Aye.
Chairman Case?
Aye. 5 ayes. Thank you, Mr. Meyer. All right. Mr. Smolinski, you better get up front and center. Bring your team. If you got a team. I see white badges in the back. They're just checking up on you. Okay, Mr. Smolinski, the floor is yours. We're doing Senate File 32, 911 funding.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Nate Smolinski, Chief Technology Officer at WIDOT and also the statewide 911 coordinator. Mr. Chairman, just as a reminder, this was a product of some work we did during the interim when we were looking at 911 funding opportunities. We had teamed up with industry for a little while, worked through this, and what we've really discovered was there was a need to capture and verify some information and data. There was a lot of questions that still remained, and the overall feeling was we weren't necessarily ready to come to this body and come with a figure to say this is what the annual cost is going to be for Wyoming. We backed up a little bit and recognized that a study is probably going to be a better way to go about this. So this bill does actually two things, and Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'll just walk through it.
You bet. Go right ahead.
So two things that this bill really captures, requires WIDOT to perform a study for transitioning and migration to NG 911, and also authorizes the department to do a grant program to do basically shortfalls in 911 services. I'm going to stop there for a second because when we talk about the grant program, further in the bill, there is a line that does say the current system. And that's pretty important we talk about that because what we're trying to do here with the grant program is not fund NG 911 transition out of this bill. It's really the needs that have been happening, the shortfall, the gaps that have been created over the past. And we're going to do a target of about 5 years is what we're going to consider on this. That's some of the data that we can lean on. So really what it comes down to is if we have a PSAP out there that wants to upgrade a piece of equipment for NG 911 purposes, that really does not fit what we're seeing what the intent for this bill is. We're looking at the existing gaps that they have right now. So moving forward, as we kind of look towards page 2 here, there is an area that does speak about the actual study itself. There's a couple items here: governance of the 911 system, operations, expenses, and efficiencies. It does start off on page 2, line 2 and 3 with the term without limitations. I'm going to pause here for a moment because one of the items that we had talked about was funding. So part of what the study does want to discover is what some of the funding models might look like for Wyoming. Now, it's my interpretation that without limitations, we should be able to put funding as part of this study. But I did want to make this body aware that funding is not called out specifically in that section. Moving forward, we do talk about a report that'll come to this body for the joint corporations by September 1 and 27. And then also, as we kind of move down here, we did talk a little bit about what the application is going to look like. An area that I did also want to specify, it says YDOT approves grants for any amounts requested that they determine necessary. And Mr. Chairman, what I would like to do was also include the Public Safety Communications Commission with this effort as oversight and participation.
Okay. Where would you put that?
Mr. Chairman, I would actually look right towards on page 2. Line 19, line 20, right after the department, we could also include Public Safety Communications Commission.
Okay. Just tentatively, everybody will get it. The department and the Public Safety Commission, is that what you're saying? Shall approve a grant?
Mr. Chairman, correct.
Okay.
We would like to include the PSCC into this process.
Okay, keep going.
And
That's
then,
just a placeholder, you guys.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to kind of move ahead a little bit to page 3. This actually speaks to the appropriation. So $3.75 million be appropriated from LISRA, Legislative Stabilization
We
Reserve
know what
Account.
that is.
I figured you did, Mr. Chairman, since you were the one that called it out last time, but pardon me, I've been doing acronyms for too long now. And then also we talk about the effective and the end date, June 30th, and this is effective immediately, which we do appreciate. That's going to help us to move forward on this quickly. $3 million is to go towards the grant program, where $750,000 is to go towards the study. And then moving forward on page 4, this just talks about the appropriation shall not be transferred or expended for any other purposes, and any unexpended or unobligated funds shall revert back on the date of June 30th, 28.
Okay, questions for Mr. Smolinski? Can you introduce your partner?
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to introduce. Actually, I will go ahead and give you the microphone.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Senators. My name is Shane Schrader. I'm the mayor of Buffalo. I'm also a member of the PSCC, the Public Safety Communications Commission. Outside of that, I'm also a first responder that relies heavily on our 911 system. I'm in full support of this. When I ran for office, and you get asked the question, what's your number one priority? Mine was the safety and security of my citizens. This is, in my mind, this is the first step to ensuring my promise to my voters. I think that it's difficult as a 911 responder, but it's even more difficult to be a 911 communicator. You don't have the chance to mentally prepare yourself for the next phone call. I have those moments, those few minutes, getting to the ambulance, getting to the coroner's pickup, whatever. I can mentally prepare myself. They don't. The 911 system, again, is the first step to the safety of our citizens. So full support of it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Mayor, Commissioner. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Let's hear it from the public. Mr. Hendricks, welcome. You guys, you don't have to dead the beat horse, you know, but you can say me too and all sorts of things. Pull up more chairs if you need it. Mr. Hendricks.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jason Hendricks with Range. Just wanted to say, support the bill. Looking forward to discussion. I just wanted to point out, I think that it's as part of the study, I think it's important to have industry be involved with it, because without industry, there's not a 911 system that works. And on the federal government side, they're looking at fundamentally changing how networks operate and transmit traffic. They're going from what's considered time division multiplexing in the current system to internet protocol. And that directly affects next gen 911 and the expectation the federal government has out of states with their systems. Under the current system, it does go through TDM before going to IP to the PSAPs, public safety answering points. And so as we go forward, as companies change how they do their network under the federal requirements, there may be changes in where we send traffic. So I think the study is important for not just within the internal system of the PSAPs and how they operate, but how the industry interconnects with that and provides services to the PSAP. So I don't know necessarily with the language whether you need to add anything. I think we're probably okay with that, and we can work with Mr. Smolinski. But I did just want to point that out as an expectation, at least from this member of industry, that we do want to be involved in that study.
If you had a special place or a particular place where you wanted to add industry participation, we'd certainly entertain it.
Yeah, and I don't have the language on me, and I'd look to Mr. Smolinski perhaps for.
Maybe you guys get together, and if you come up with something before we're done, we'll take it up.
Glad
Any
to do
questions for Mr. Hendricks? Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. My name is Alan Thompson, the Executive Director of WASCOP, the Chiefs and Sheriffs Association. And we had a great opportunity to work with all the folks this summer and having this discussion in your committee and moving this forward to consideration today. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we would just ask that we move forward with this because it is crucial for our members across the state that are operating the PSAPs. And we're looking forward to learning more about moving into that next gen and affordability and efficiencies and all those things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Questions for Mr. Thompson? Looks like you're off the hook. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Shad Cooper. I'm here on behalf of the Wyoming Fire Advisory Board. Our body had an opportunity to review this proposed bill in our December meeting, and then again, the fire chiefs met in January and reviewed it as well. We stood in support of this bill, and I just wanted to come and provide that for you and just ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Where are you from?
From Sublette County. I'm the fire chief in Sublette County.
Thank you very much for coming over. Yes, sir. Any questions, Fire Chief? Thank you, sir. Let's hear from the county commissioner.
Good morning. Thad Hoff, Albany County. I also sit on the Public Safety Communications Commission and would like to support this as well. It's not just a government agency coming and asking for funds. This directly impacts counties and municipalities. And I would like to echo Mr. Smolinski's comments about the need for a study outside of industry. The commission has heard from industry folks. I won't say we were lied to, but having talked to other counties throughout the state, they have to increase the level of urgency to get service from some of the industry partners so that the 911 calls actually have a destination to be answered at. The technology is in fact changing. The state of Wyoming needs to make sure they take a lead on this and know what the infrastructure in the ground is and how it's functioning and where the hiccups are to make sure that when people do enjoy the public trust and dial 911, that call's answered and not dropped. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Huff. Any questions for the commissioner? Thank you very much for being here today. Mr. Moline.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in support of this bill. Given where a lot of my members work and live and the issues that are rural America is facing, be able to have emergency services respond quicker with this enhanced communication is important. So sitting in support of the bill, trying to be brief, sir. Sitting in support, I'd take any questions.
Everything you just said is appreciated. Any questions for Mr. Moline? Thank you, sir. Mr. Hendricks, did you figure something out?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Let's hear it.
Page 1, line 15, after the word study, include comma, and then have it say, including stakeholders and industry. Comma.
Okay, from funds appropriated for that purpose, the Department of Transportation shall conduct a study, including stakeholders and industry, examining the transition to next gen 911. Would someone like to offer that amendment? Got a motion by Dockstader. I didn't really get a motion on the bill first. Let's do that. So based on is there any other public comment online? Is there any other public comment in the room? Stay there, Mr. Hendrickson, or Mr. Hendricks. We've got a motion by Dockstader on the bill, and now Mr. Hendricks has proposed an amendment, including stakeholders and industry with commas on both sides. At the very last of page 1. Anybody like to offer that? Got a motion by Dockstader. Discussion? Discussion? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Smolinski had mentioned earlier, and I think we got you, Mr. Hendricks, if you're okay. He mentioned funding and he wanted to be sure that funding was included. Mr. Smolinski, may I ask you if an amendment that read, the study shall include without limitation governance of the 911 system, comma, operations, comma, expenses, comma, efficiencies, comma, and funding. Would you be okay with that? Is that messed up anything?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that will work perfectly.
Does it help you?
It does.
Would someone like to offer that amendment?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Landon. Line 4, strike the first and, put a comma after expenses, put a comma after efficiencies, and insert and funding. Any discussion? All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Amendment is carried. Back on the bill. Anything else on the bill? Senator Steinmetz.
Mr. Chairman, I have one further amendment. I think just
Sure,
uh,
go ahead.
as appropriators, it would be on page 2, line 8 or line 7 after 2027, insert the Department of Transportation shall not begin implementation of the transition to next gen 911 without further legislative approval. And Mr. Chairman, just trying to make sure that we know exactly what we're doing and that we approve it before we go forward and obligate ourselves into something that we don't have our arms around.
Okay, discussion on the amendment. Senator Steinmetz, I think we could kind of say that, but when they were to buy a new piece of equipment, it might be for the purpose of the existing system, but they will likely be thinking ahead and buy a piece of equipment that would be compatible with improvements to the system. And I'm wondering if your language would actually kind of prevent that. I'm just asking a question. Because I think we say they can't move forward, but they're kind of moving forward already. And with everybody's tolerance, I might let Mr. Smolinski comment on this issue. Mr. Smolinski.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that great statement you just made there, and Senator Steinmetz. It is accurate that if somebody's going to buy a piece of equipment today, there is a 99% chance it is going to be what we refer to as NG 911 ready. So even if they're updating something that has died or going to die end of life, that next product coming in there, it is going to have, call it a stamp. It's going to be ready to migrate through there. Now, whether or not they're going to be able to utilize the full feature set, that's the next question. And I think maybe we could wrap some language around how do we validate what the study is going to do? So maybe we have to lean upon the results of the study. And that might be a different discussion we could have, that the study is going to help pave that path, that roadmap into what the full migration for the state of Wyoming is going to look like. So maybe it's a bigger picture discussion to be had.
Back to you, Senator Steinmetz. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, the transition to full migration, would that help the language?
Mr. Smolinski?
And Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to see how that's going to play out there.
Mr. Chairman,
Go
with
ahead.
I will withdraw the amendment and work on a committee of the whole amendment with you to accomplish what I want to do, if that would be okay.
Sure, if there's no objection, you can withdraw it. You bet.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to work with you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds like a good way to proceed. Anything else on the bill? Could we have a roll call on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote for Senate File 32 as amended. Senator Boner. Senator Dockstader.
Aye.
Senator Landon. Senator Steinmetz.
Aye.
Chairman Case.
Aye.
Mr.
And-
Chairman, you have 5 aye.
Thank you very much for everybody's work today. I note that this last bill has an appropriation, so we'll make a re-referral. upon it being read in, and appreciate staff. I almost thought some of the staff had a conflict on the Department of Transportation a little bit, but we're okay. Everybody, thank you. Right now, we don't have anything, but if we get assigned something, we'll meet on Friday morning.